Hey everyone, Ryan Cam here. Before I dive into the video today, I just wanted to get out in front of this and just say that this is a preemptive spoiler warning. Jacob and I are going to be talking about The Village and the twist of The Village in great detail. So if you have not seen the movie, this is your spoiler warning. Do not watch this video. Don't do what happened to me. I was watching a random video about Shyamalan and the twist was spoiled for me without any context. I don't want that to happen to any of you. So if you have not seen The Village and are interested in seeing The Village, watch The Village first, then come back to this. This is your preemptive spoiler warning right here and now. The screen is going to go black, and when it sees my intro, then it's going to be spoiler territory. So this is your fair warning. Other than that, enjoy the video. Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam and welcome back to the Shyamalan Project, where I will be covering every M. Night Shyamalan film I have yet to cover in honor of Knock at the Cabin coming in February. I've already covered Praying with Anger, Wide Awake, and Signs. Those reviews will be linked in the eye in the right-hand corner if you are interested in checking those out. But without any further ado, let's get into, at the time, the film that said, maybe the Shyamalan guy is not all he's cracked up to be, in the form of The Village. This was released in 2004. It starred William Hurt, rest in peace, Bryce Dallas Howard, Joaquin Phoenix, and Adrien Brody, among others. Despite what the marketing says, this is not a horror movie. It's about a village living seemingly in the middle of nowhere and a romance that blossoms between a character played by Bryce Dallas Howard, who is blind, and a character played by Joaquin Phoenix. They live in seclusion, but they try to see what else is beyond their border. However, that going beyond their border is frowned upon. The village elders, headed up by William Hurt, claim that outside of their borders are those we do not speak of. But before I dive into my thoughts, I wanted to toss it over to my Life in the Movies podcast partner and all-around swell guy, Jacob Martin. Jacob, take it away.
Thank you, Ryan, for having me on your channel once again, and it's an honor to be part of your M. Night Shyamalan director project. M. Night has made some interesting movies. My personal favorite is The Sixth Sense, but I'm also a fan of Unbreakable, Split, Glass. I thought The Visit was fun to watch. Signs, I haven't seen it in a while, but I wasn't that big a fan of the twist ending, so The Village is what you've asked me to cover on your director project. This came out in 2004, starring actors such as Joaquin Phoenix, Bryce Dallas Howard, Adrien Brody, William Hurt, Sigourney Weaver, Brendan Gleeson, among others. This movie is very fascinating because this was the movie that came out that, for a lot of people, signified the downward spiral of M. Night Shyamalan as a director. Because, he started out with the Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs. People were loving those movies. Village came out. People weren't as big on the film. And after The Village came movies like The Happening, The Last Airbender, After Earth, which critics and audiences both hated. And those movies very much underperformed, flopped, and a lot of people, for the longest time, could not take M. Night Shyamalan seriously as a director anymore. And he was seen as a big joke. However, I have noticed kind of a reappraisal of Signs in more recent years. Some people actually think Signs is an underrated and misunderstood movie. So where do I fall in the category of The Village? I'm going to have to say I fall in the underrated and misunderstood category on this movie. Now, the disappointment that I had seen from people online, I think it all comes down to the fact the trailer was badly marketed. The trailer gave audiences false expectations that The Village was a legit horror movie. And I actually went back and watched the main trailer. The movie makes you believe it's about these creatures invading a village. That the people built this village around these scary creatures, and the creatures thought they were invading the land, and they're going to come and attack the people pretty much. That's the general premise of the trailer and what the trailer makes it look like. No, that is not what The Village is about. There's an occasional horror element sprinkled in The Village, and it is pretty suspenseful at times, but that is not the core focus of the movie. The core focus of the movie is this romance between Joaquin Phoenix and Bryce Dallas Howard's character. A near tragedy happens, and it's up to Bryce Dallas Howard to go out and venture out of her comfort zone into the woods to help save the life of the man that she loves. And that's the core concept of the movie. She's venturing out into the unknown, into a world that she does not even know about, and to make matters worse is she's blind and she can't see anything in general. She has to do all that in order to save the person she loves and values and holds dear. So that's actually a very compelling romance narrative sprinkled into the story. Yeah, there's a couple scary moments in there, but the heart of the movie is this romance, and I thought the romance was actually really good. Like, Bryce Dallas Howard is terrific in this movie, along with Joaquin Phoenix. I think it's Bryce Dallas Howard's show more than anything else, and she's the one who really carries the movie on her back. The supporting cast in here is really great too. Adrian Brody plays a very interesting character, a very mentally challenged character that a lot of people don't really think much of a threat, but he becomes this really crazy psycho by the end of the story. You have William Hurt leading the ensemble of leaders in this movie, and he's really good, along with Sigourney Weaver, Brendan Gleeson in small supporting roles. I think the other big element of this movie is the big twist, and Ryan said we're going to dive into spoilers in here, so I am diving into the twist. The twist of the movie is that the creatures are not actual creatures. It's actually a hoax perpetrated by the leaders to scare people into staying in the village and not venturing out into the outside world, which they believe to be very hostile and dangerous. And then we later find out at the very, very end that this 19th century village where we thought the time setting is actually also a hoax too. The film actually takes place in modern day. This whole idea of the village was funded by this like university professor, William Hurt's character, who, along with other grieving parents who were saddened by the onslaught of violence in recent years, which has claimed the lives of other family members and loved ones, decide to create a village from decades past to help protect their children and live in a more simpler time. Now, a lot of people were disappointed by that twist when it came out. I didn't watch The Village when it came out. I watched the film years later for the first time, not knowing, the divisiveness of the movie. And I've seen this movie 3 times now, and every time I've seen this movie, I thought this was a clever twist. It really shows the vulnerability of these characters, especially William Hurt, who has some amazing acting monologues in this movie. And it really left me thinking about, if I was in that situation, if I lost somebody that close and I was disillusioned about modern society, would I want to try to shelter my kids from that and try to replicate a more simpler time? Of course, there's ethics behind all that. I'm like, why would you want to lie to your kids and make them believe in something else that's not actually 100% true? And there's a lot of questionable ethics surrounding that. But at the same time, you can see where all these characters are coming from because they were so disillusioned by what was currently going on that they wanted to find something that was more innocent and simple in the past. And I do appreciate the nuance that M. Night put into the screenplay and within these very broken characters. I thought the twist in this movie was very excellent, and honestly, I thought it elevated the themes of the story even more. I love the score from James Newton Howard. It is a very powerful score with some incredible violin solos that are played throughout, I think, some of the more romantic aspects of the movie, and I think it's very well done. Even though I think I can see some being disappointed that the whole creatures that were hinted at was actually all a hoax. When we do find that Adrian Brody's character, who is much more psychotic than what's led to believe, as he's the one that stabs Joaquin Phoenix character and nearly kills him, and he's doing it all in fits of jealousy because he is attracted to Bryce Dallas Howard's character. Adrian Brody when he's in that costume at the end of the film trying to kill Bryce Dallas Howard's character. It is very suspenseful, especially the sound design that's played throughout that sequence. And you know, something's looming, you don't know what it is, and you see the creature, and she already knows that it's a hoax, but she's like, what's actually going on? What is this all about? And it's a very suspenseful sequence that had a very satisfying payoff at the end for me. I enjoy this movie. I guess if you didn't like this film when it first came out in theaters, I recommend giving it a second chance. Watch it with different expectations. Come in watching it as a romance film with a little bit of horror element sprinkled in it, with a very thoughtful twist. You might get into it a little bit more. Although, if you didn't like the twist the first time, I don't know if a revisit will win you over. I guess it depends on your overall mentality of movies and stuff. For me personally, I love this movie. There's still the M. Night isms with some cringe dialogue at times. Like there's a monologue said by Judy Greer's character, which was absolute cringe, and I burst out laughing every time I watch that scene where she tries to confess her love to him, which backfires. And there's another part where Bryce Dallas Howard says, dancing makes me feel the most agreeable. And I'm like, who talks like that? That's ridiculous. Cringe dialogue aside, and the first act is a little bit slow. Once the story and the mystery begins to unfold, I think it's a great movie. I think it's a deeply misunderstood film. And honestly, this might sound like a hot take, but this is in my top 3 M. Night Shyamalan movies, along with Unbreakable and The Sixth Sense. The Sixth Sense is still my favorite, but I really enjoy and respect The Village for what it is. It's not going to work for everybody, but I do appreciate what M. Night was going for in this movie, and I think this is his most underrated and misunderstood film. So for me, I'll be giving The Village a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and on the 100-point scale, it's getting an 84 out of 100. So thank you, Ryan, for inviting me on your channel once again to talk about The Village. I hope you do more of these director projects sometime. I've been enjoying your M. Night Shyamalan videos. I don't know how you thought of this movie, whether you like it or hate it or not. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one. So back to you, Ryan.
Jacob joins me every week for the Life in the Movies podcast here on this channel. He also has a channel of his own linked in the description of the video. Also go give him a follow on Twitter. So like he mentioned, this movie is one of those that at the time was just hated to just every single degree. However, as the years have gone on, there is a small but vocal crowd of people who actually like this movie and have given it a bit of a reappraisal over the years, if for nothing else because of the hilarious mismarketing of this movie. It was billed as a horror movie, meaning these people are fending off these big hairy creatures, or well, not hairy creatures, but these big creatures who are trying to take over their village and, well, I guess eat them? But that's not really what happens. There are some tense moments. There are moments which could lean in more of a horror direction, but this is more of a romance movie and more of a period piece. And it's curious to me to see how just this marketing team took that. I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I remember reading an article in which Shyamalan was quoted as saying, I would have fired the marketing team, or something along those lines. If you all know the interview I'm talking about, help me out in the comments. I was spoiled of the twist out of context, and I delayed watching this movie for as long as possible, until this project. And now that I've seen The Village, it's not nearly as bad as I have heard some people say it to be. It's not one of Shyamalan's best, but this is another one, along with Signs, that I would classify as misunderstood. Firstly, credit to James Newton Howard. That dude and M. Night Shyamalan are a super underrated duo because Newton Howard delivers such excellent scores, not just for all his previous movies like Sixth Sense and Signs, but also was the score for The Village is just fantastic. Newton Howard did not need to go so hard for this movie, but I am so glad that he did. Along with that, the cast is suitably very good. The late William Hurt is good, Joaquin Phoenix is predictably great, but the star of the show is Bryce Dallas Howard. She is the best part of the movie. She is center stage of my favorite part of the movie, where the village is seemingly under attack, and, well, she being blind, it stays out there to see, or not see, but to feel where they're coming from. And it is an incredibly tense moment, and it's very well done. And I guess this is as good a place as any to, well, dive into that twist. Spoiler warning at the beginning, you've been warned. So basically, the big twist, as Jacob mentioned, this movie takes place in modern day. The village elders are not from the 1890s, but in reality, they take place in 2004. They basically moved to this wildlife preserve, and they self-funded basically a live action. They're basically LARPing. They're LARPing living in the 1890s. Every one of the elders has suffered a tragedy in their families of some kind. They couldn't take it, and so they decided to live off the land away from modern societies to simpler times of the 1890s, building up very simple villages and just basically going back in time to try and forget about the horrors that they left behind. This is the part of the movie that really kills it for some people. This is the twist that people just say is dumb and one of the worst twists that Shyamalan has ever done, while the twist in Glass also exists. But now that I have the full context of the twist and what Shyamalan was going for, I don't think it entirely works. But as usual, I think Shyamalan's heart was in the right place. This message of these people trying to escape the grief and the sorrow that they have suffered to try and go back to a time in which they think is much more simple, the heart in me says, okay, that's very noble, but in the head part of me, it doesn't entirely work. And Shyamalan, in a bit of a cameo, is there to sort of explain what happens. Basically, they paid off a bunch of people, even paid off some government people to have no planes fly over the wildlife preserve. I don't know how that happens, but there you go. But again, the idea of these people escaping the grief that they have suffered by going back in time, even though in the 1890s, it wasn't exactly rosy either. People were dying in their 40s. Medicine wasn't nearly as advanced as it is today. I guess nostalgia was in even back in 2004. Who really knows? Don't roast me for this in the comments. Listen to me. I'm not saying that this twist is a particularly great twist. It is not. But it's not nearly as bad, especially in the context of what Shyamalan was going for, than I was expecting. It doesn't really work, but like I said, Shyamalan's heart was in the right place. Overall, I'm going to give this a good rating. Call me biased, call me whatever you want, but these are my thoughts and I'm sticking to them. There is actual effort put forth into this. Not all of it works, but this is nowhere near Shyamalan's worst. Believe me, we're going to be getting there in this project, that's for sure. But overall, I would give this one a modest recommendation, as long as you give it people the recommendation of going into it not knowing anything about it beforehand. Well, this is going to be interesting. What do you all think of The Village? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read what you have to say. And next up on the project, we are going to be tackling 2006's Lady in the Water. Oh boy. But if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and if you like this video and you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications, so when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.